Welcome to the Anomalous Review, the official podcast of the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies. My name is Michael Glosson. I'm a philosopher of science and technology and the host of the show. This conversation is part of a special series on the Anomalous Review that we're calling the UAP Witness Series. Let me tell you a bit about it. In this series, I interview SCU members who've had their own personal encounters with truly anomalous phenomena. These conversations are a new format for us. As an organization, SCU leans toward a hard science approach to studying UAP. That means using quantitative data that fits into spreadsheets and that can be analyzed with consistent statistical methods. Things like the size, shape, acoustical, and kinetic properties of UAP. That's the kind of data that SCU specializes in. Now, that's partly because of our skill set. Most of our members are working scientists and engineers. So we're used to using that kind of data and those sorts of analytical tools. But this approach also serves as a kind of hedge that keeps sober discussions about UAP from falling into unstructured or even unreasonable speculation. You probably know the kind of conversations that I mean. We like structured investigations that employ the tools that we're familiar with. But it would be a mistake to think that we at SCU focus on the hard data points simply because we think that that's all there is to these phenomena. Every one of those data points, after all, comes from an encounter that was deeply and uniquely personal. And these encounters are far richer, stranger, and more complex than the numbers in a spreadsheet might ever suggest. The tools of quantitative analysis just aren't great for analyzing those unique experiential dimensions, though. So, for our analytic work at SCU, we usually just set the rich elements of those stories aside. But shortly after we launched this podcast, SCU leaders told me that there are several SCU members who'd had their own encounters with UAP. And after a few conversations, we decided, let's invite those members to tell their stories, just as they experienced them, along with all the questions and ideas that those encounters gave rise to. Encounters like these are, after all, the source of our hard data points. And inviting people to tell their stories here is a way of showing what's on the other side of the spreadsheets, the unique, complex, deeply strange, and often unsettling experiences that push us to ask questions that data-driven analytical methods aren't always fit to tackle. So let me say this clearly, though. Acknowledging the strangeness of these encounters, giving people space to tell them just as they live them, is in no way a departure from SCU's data-driven scientific mission. But it's meant to complement that mission by acknowledging the very elements of our source material that often compelled us to want to do the scientific work in the first place. This is an expression of the conviction that doing good science means holding on to intellectual humility before a reality that's under no obligations to conform to our expectations or to our tools. And that means facing reality as it comes, even and especially when it challenges our frameworks. We're putting out two versions of each interview in this series. One is a long, unedited version that contains the whole conversation. The other is a shorter version where the guest just gives a basic overview of some of the details of their encounter. This recording is a full-length conversation. In it, we go into significant depth, not just about the guest's encounter, but about how that experience affected them personally, and how they processed the experience both intellectually and spiritually. These aren't quick stories. They're stories people have lived often for decades. We wanted to create a space where they could be told in full without interruption or oversimplification, and that's what this long version is meant to provide. Dr. Andrea Lani is an aerospace engineer, researcher, and a team manager for the Center for Mathematical Plasma Astrophysics at the Catholic University of Leuven in Belgium. He has worked for NASA, Stanford, NATO Science and Technology Organization, and the Karman Institute. Andrea is a member of the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics and of the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies, which hosts this show. He has co-authored over 100 scientific papers, and his research is focused on developing computational models for simulating and studying weather in space, for planning the atmospheric re-entry of spacecraft, for designing prototypes of magnetic shielding, just to name a few. Dr. Lani considers himself to have been an experiencer of UAP and NHI ever since his first close encounter as a child in 1983. That was the first of what would turn out to be a lifelong series of strange encounters. He's given interviews about those experiences on other media outlets as well. You can find them with a quick search of his name. Andrea is a fascinating person and an expansive thinker. He has the rare combination of a mind that is simultaneously precise, creative, and gracious. That made our conversations a real joy for me, and I think you'll feel the same. So here now is my conversation with Dr. Andrea Lani. If you could just kind of like tell me what you do and who you are and maybe where you grew up and how you got interested in this subject, and then maybe we can kind of dovetail into the presentation itself.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Italian. I was born in Turin in 1975. And I really got interested into this at an early age when I was 8 years old, because I had a first experience that was also witnessed by my parents. So we saw a UFO in front of the balcony, and I will elaborate more later. And then, I've always been pretty successful in school. At some point when I had to decide what to do in life, I was undecided between astrophysics and engineering, particularly because I wanted to get to a point in my life to study this phenomenon that triggered my attention when I was 8 years old. And actually triggered it pretty deeply, because I also got interested into a lot of paranormal stuff, spirits and all this kind of stuff. And this was also somehow supported by experiences from other people in my family. I have a very large family. Like from the side of my father, there are 17 siblings, and from the side of my mother, 5, while I am a single only child, basically.
Oh, wow.
So imagine the number of cousins that I have. And anyway, so I happen to have people in both sides of the family that had some experience. Sometimes with UFOs, sometimes with spirits. So I always kept a very open mind on anything. And I was curious about everything. I was curious about paranormal, but I was also curious about criminal cases, for instance.
Sure.
So I decided to go for engineering, because aerospace engineering, because I was advised to choose engineering because it would have been easier than to find a job.
Sure.
And I think I never regretted the choice, even though at the end, I ended up working also with astrophysicists. So in my current position, I actually work with space engineers and astrophysicists. So I moved to Belgium in 2001, right after my master's degree in aerospace engineering. And then I worked in a company for like 9 months, and then I started a PhD. Which was not in my intention in the beginning, but so I got a PhD in engineering sciences. I actually
at Leuven, at KU Leuven?
No, actually it was at the Karman Institute for Fluid Dynamics, and also at the University of Brussels. And then after that, I became senior research engineer in the same institute, and then I moved to the States for 1 year, in which I was postdoctoral researcher at Stanford and NASA Ames. And then I came back to Belgium. And then after a while, I changed again job, and I ended up at the university where I'm now.
Are you Catholic?
I wasn't born in a Catholic family, but my parents absolutely wanted me, or at least my mother wanted me absolutely to be indoctrinated into Catholicism. So, and of course, as a child, I followed up to a point. I think it was around 9 years old or 10 years old, in which I was already started questioning the whole construct. I wasn't questioning the teachings of Jesus. Like I like the personality of Jesus, but I didn't like the structure that was created. And even, I was a child, but I was feeling it. And then, unfortunately, my parents still decided to push me towards some more Catholic let's say path. And so I had to do the secondary school in a private school with some priests, and so they basically indoctrinated me back. But then, when I moved to Belgium, I was 26 years old. Then everything changed. And then progressively, I never lost interest for the character of Jesus and for what he represented, but I really lost all the interest for the church, let's say, for the structure of power that created. So no, I'm not Catholic. I would say in some way I'm Christian, and I'm spiritual, definitely.
I'm in a similar place, not necessarily with respect to Catholicism, but with respect to religion or Christianity. There's some sense in which I'm a Christian, but it's not in that structural doctrinal sense, I don't think. Can I ask, just as a lead in, you say that you had family members who had a lot of these experiences that they shared with you. Like, how did you find out that they had those? Did you grow up in a family where it was common to talk about just the strangeness of the world, or did you ask people?
So basically, this kind of discussion happened mostly at marriages, because I told you I have this large family, and there have been a lot of marriages. And sometimes, you are in a car with some auntie or uncle, and then he said, I had this strange experience, and so I will show actually a couple of pictures, and one video and one picture that come from the same uncle. And we had some chat like that.
So
not so many, but a few.
But enough to keep your interest sort of, perpetually alive, I guess.
And actually it helped at the very beginning, the fact that in the same place where we saw this UFO in 1983, also an uncle, so a brother of my mother, saw a UFO like 2 weeks later with his wife, looking different, but in the same exact place.
Oh,
so, yeah.
Okay. Well, do you want to start with your presentation and just see where the conversation goes?
Yeah. So, do you see my screen?
I do. Yeah, I think we're good.
Okay, let's see if I can minimize. All right. So, I jump directly into my UAP sightings because that's a bit the start of the story.
Okay.
And so, in 1983, I was in Celle Ligure, which is a small village in the northwest of Italy. And we were on a balcony with my parents. And around 10 o'clock in the night, so it was already dark, nobody around, not in the street, not in other balconies. And we were chatting, and at a certain point, we see this object appearing right in front of our balcony, maybe 10 meters in front of us, and at the same height as the balcony. And this object started immediately spinning like a turbine, and at thousands of RPM, and it was glowing. And then it progressively shrunk in size till it disappeared while emitting a flash of light. And, it was not like a light high in the sky. It was something really right in front of me. And I never, my eyes were locked to it. So I could have...
It was a very clear experience. It wasn't vague.
Absolutely. And it was like few seconds in total, but it was pretty interesting. So even during these few seconds, I could notice something. For instance, I noticed that the landscape in the background of the object appeared to be distorted, almost as I was looking through glass when I was looking close to the object. And if I think about that now, we know, for instance, that gravitational fields can bend the light. So maybe that object was really able to create some sort of gravitational bubble or something, and the light was distorting my visual was distorted because of that.
Sure.
And, so after let's say when the object disappeared, I turned on my left and asked my mother, "Did you see that?" And she said, "Yes." And I said, "What was that?" And my mother is no scientist, and she said, "Well, maybe it was a falling star." But I was 8 years old, but I knew that was not a falling star. And so there is a follow-up in the story, which is, let's say that I forgot about this event, or let's say I didn't pay too much attention to the event for about 4 or 5 years. And then once we went to this brother of my mother, who was, let's say, my favorite uncle, and he was also into paranormal and stuff like that. So at some point he said, I want to show you something. So he takes this book and he showed me a drawing that he did in 1983, few weeks after we were there in the same place. And he said, I saw this object. And he described the story in which he was on the balcony, and then suddenly there is this object coming high in the sky, but on his left. And he could see that it was like a saucer with a dome and with different lights. So I could see basically the object rotating very slowly, and these beams of light of different colors, like in a sci-fi movie. Yeah. And then he called the wife. He said, "Come to the balcony, look up. Do you see it?" And she said, "Yes, I see it." And then he said, probably they observed this phenomenon for about 45 seconds or something like that. This was his perception of time. And then the object increased the rotation speed, became like a ball of red light, and then it shot like a bullet. And after that, they also experienced some sort of hallucination during the night. So he was, let's say, waking up, and he saw some sort of face with the air trembling, like vibrating, made of fire, made of light, hanging on the wall. And he freaked out, and then it disappeared. And then the morning after, the wife told him, I had a strange dream this night, and I dreamt about Jesus Christ made of fire in our bedroom. So by comparing the two experiences were kind of similar, and, at the same time, basically. So it was interesting. And of course, when he told me that, I said, "Oh, Ma, do you remember that we also saw an object in the same place, in the same year?" And that was the beginning, basically, for me. And then, so I had to wait a long time before having another experience of this kind. But this time it was triggered by my intention. So what happened is I was already in this house in Belgium. And in 2017, I was like stargazing on the second floor. And I had this thought in my head, like, it would be so great to have another experience like the one that I had when I was a child. Now that I'm an aerospace engineer, if something happened, I maybe look more at details. And so I go to sleep. My ex-girlfriend was already lying in the bed, and she made me notice a strange high-pitched metallic sound, kind of, in the background. And it was 1:00 in the night, and it was a very unusual sound. So that kept me awake. And so I was basically staring at the ceiling, and at a certain point, I see a single ray of green light entering from the window. And in a matter of 1 second, the whole room is completely enlightened in bright green light. Yeah. It was surreal. So basically I jumped to the window, I pulled the curtain to look what was there. And I saw 2 discs of green light moving together. They were basically flying over my backyard and then over the roof of the neighbor. And because I know the size of the facade of the neighbor, I can estimate that the diameter of each of these light was probably around 2 meters, which is far too big for any kind of drone. And it was just a single light. 2 lights, moving together like synchronously, and no noise whatsoever. So I went upstairs to see if I could see past the roof of the neighbor, but I couldn't. But the interesting thing is that I had expressed an intention, and I had this strange experience like maybe 10 minutes later. So the year after, this was on a March 2017. Then I actually remember that in 2017 I had an experience that I had sort of forgotten. But one night I basically found myself standing by the bed, looking at the bed where my girlfriend was already lying, and I didn't remember how I got into that specific position. It was like, now I could say maybe it was a case of missing time, but at the time I just brushed it off. I said, I don't understand what happened, but I don't know. But anyway, so the year after, so in 2018, I did another experiment of the kind. So I was stargazing this time. I had an enormous light pollution in Brussels. So if you look at the sky, maybe you see 20, 30 stars, maybe a few more if you stay there long enough. That night, I could see maybe 20, 30 stars, and I could see in particular the Orion belt. But after having expressed the intention to connect or to have an experience, in the matter of what I felt like 1 minute or something like that, the sky, I saw basically an avalanche of lights covering completely the sky from side to side. I would say thousands of lights. Everywhere I was looking, it was completely packed with lights, which is impossible. It's just impossible in Brussels. And then I opened the window to be sure that I was awake. I was touching my wrist, saying, "What is this, a dream or what?" So I opened the window, and then I saw some sort of purple fireball appearing somewhere and crossing the Orion belt and then disappearing, like a bullet.
Do you have any sense the size of the lights that you were seeing? Did they seem like sort of in the celestial plane, or did they seem...
Absolutely, yes, very far, very far. And then after that, I had the impression that I had some sort of mystical experience. And it was the second time in 1 year that I was asking for a contact. And this time it happened in a way that is like even behind my wildest dream, And then the day after I try again, same request, but nothing happened. And I stayed there for like maybe half an hour. I was constantly asking, sure, do it again, nothing happened. But that was a turning point in my approach to this phenomenon. Because, so also what happened is that in a couple of weeks, and I don't think it has been by chance, but I had an accident at home, and I could have ended up really bad, but I just broke my ankle. And so I got surgery, and I got stuck home for like 6 weeks. During these 6 weeks, I had a lot of time to kill. It was like sick leave officially. And so I was researching on YouTube connections between spirituality and UFO encounters, which is something that I never really explored. And so I bumped into, some YouTubers that were saying interesting stuff. But okay, so I postpone a little bit this discussion to the next slide. So in 2020, I was actually coming back from London, and I was driving from the parking lot to the train to go from the Eurotunnel, to cross the tunnel and come back to the continent. And basically I look up, and then I see this object that look a bit like this one, with different lights, different colors, like 4 different colors, like yellow, red, green, and blue. And then the first thing that struck me was the size of the object, which was bigger than my car, probably 10 meters in length. Then these different kind of lights. And then the light pattern changed. What I saw is something that looked like a plasma discharge, orange kind of, going from one side to the other of the object, wrapping it completely. And then this sort of plasma discharge dissipated completely in one light that kept on blinking together with a few others. At that point, I started recording. I had to stop often because there was a queue to enter the train. And so I had a chance to grab the phone and try to do something. And here you see a collection of, let's say, videos that I shot. So basically, these are the light posts, and then this object was way above. So you see this object?
Mm-hmm.
And then the day after, I also checked if there was no standing structure, which was very much taller than the light post. I found aerial views. I found videos of people driving along the same path, and there is nothing. There are the light posts and nothing else. So here you see a better view. Yeah. You see this object?
Sure. Does seem the lights on it seem connected to one another. It doesn't seem like they're two.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so this is a view, for instance, if you drive along the same path, you only see the light post. There is nothing. But apart from that, I mean, I could see that the object was just hovering,
Yeah.
But then another interesting thing is that I also experienced a time anomaly while looking at this object, and I will show you in the next slide. Then in 2021, I was basically going for a walk around 8:00 in the evening with a friend. As soon as we reach the corner of this block, we see this object coming towards us. It was looking like 3 balls on top of each other, perfectly in line and red. And my first thought was, this looks like a giant drone, because the size was really big, probably from 2 to 3 meters in height.
Mm-hmm.
And this object was really like stiff. If it had been balloons, for instance, connected to each other, you would have seen them moving like this.
Moving relative to one another.
It was just one piece. So it came towards us, and then it went up. So I took some videos, and basically, if you take some snapshot, you see that the object actually changed size. So from the three balls that we saw initially, it became like 5 or 4. And you clearly see also that there is no connection between the balls. Mm. So it was almost like they were levitating on top of each other. And that was quite interesting. So in 2022, I participated to a massive protest here in Brussels. Mm. And we ended up, the protest was ending in a park. And at the time I was meditating already, doing, let's say, some sort of connection that I will explain later and show some stuff. And I got a message, we will show ourselves to you. So the meditation finishes.
How did that message come to you? Was that auditory, or it sort of, you just had the impression?
Yeah, it's like in your own voice, but you understand that it's not coming from your own thoughts. Sure. And it's, you have to get used to the process. It's like, at the beginning, it's difficult to discern. But by the time I was already meditating and having these experiences for more than 2 years. Anyway, so what happens is my 3 friends, 2 of the 3 friends go to look for a restroom. The other friend sit on the ground looking at the book. And I keep on looking at the sky because I got this message, And suddenly I see actually a gray object going through the clouds, but I couldn't really distinguish the shape. I could only see a part of it. That triggered kind of my attention without really knowing what it was. But then the strangest thing was that suddenly I see myself surrounded by thousands of small blinking lights. They were everywhere around me, like almost like a cloud. And I looked down, I looked in front, and they were everywhere. And then they just
like physically close to you in your immediate.
Very, very close. I was just surrounding. They were just there. And then somehow after a while they disappear. And when my friends came back, I said, I had this strange experience. And then in 2023, I started experiencing a lot of electronic malfunctioning. And I will elaborate a little bit later, but it always happened when I'm meditating. Let's say after a meditation, I get some sort of message like the one that I got, that I explained before. And then my attention focuses on one cloud that look a bit strange, and then I get this anomaly. But I will tell you more details there later. And then, I had these 2 experiences in which we actually tried to summon UFOs. And I did it with the same friends. Well, in one case, it was with the same 3 friends, and in the other case, just with one of them. And so the first time we went to a forest, let's say kind of forest, big park, in a specific spot in total darkness. And so they were kind of channeling, and I was meditating with open eyes, and we were focusing our attention in the center of the circle. And one of these friends, who is actually an astrophysicist, at some point had the feeling to have seen something, and she got scared. And then I said, okay, let's stop. I don't want to put fear into this kind of experiments. And then we were about to leave the park, And again, they get distracted. Two are talking to each other, and one goes on the ground again to do her laces. In that moment, I'm looking at the sky and I see a giant orb of light coming. Basically, it was not too high in altitude, probably 100 meters or something like that. I see him coming from my right and shooting up at supersonic or hypersonic speed, no noise whatsoever, but it was gigantic. Like compared to the disk of the moon, it was much larger. Mm. And then the most recent, let's say, sighting that I had, again, during an experiment of summoning, I was here in the house with a friend, and it was actually the night in which Trump was shot. It happened in the exact moment in which he was shot. I was seeing this orb. Basically, it came from around the corner of my house. It passed in front of me. It was lower in altitude, maybe 30-50 meters in altitude. It made a turn, and it was interesting because it had some sort of wake which was split, almost like you think about the tongue of a snake, like a scissor.
Sure, yeah.
So I see this object basically zooming in front of me, and then it disappears. Once that is in line with my window, it just disappears. And then immediately after, we get messages from a friend in Florida saying they have tried to assassinate Trump. This, I find that very interesting, the correlation between these two events. But okay, so going back to the time anomaly that I was mentioning in UK. So the story is that when I was in the parking lot, I was chatting with a friend. She was at the airport at the time. And I sent a message at 22:24. And then I started driving towards the train. She sent me a message meanwhile, but I wasn't looking at the phone. And once I get on the train, which for me was about 7 minutes to 10 minutes after, because there was this queue I had to stop all the time, I immediately record an audio saying, I think I saw a UFO, and I caught it on tape. And the first interesting thing is that you see the timestamp, 22:25. So it's almost 1 minute, only 1 minute passed. But in reality, it was 7 to 10. And then the other interesting thing is that my friend sent me a message in between, which was using the emoji of a UFO, which was not connected to the content of our conversation.
So was that an accident? What was the meaning of the emoji in that sense?
I don't know. I think because she was about to fly with the airplane, instead of putting the airplane, she put the UFO. And at the same time in which I was seeing one and catching it on tape. And then basically, if you look, for instance, at the timestamps of the photos and videos that I took on my phone in the photo app, there you see basically 4 minutes. Like the difference between the first photo and the last one is 4 minutes. So I could look at the object for at least 4 minutes, but according to WhatsApp, it was just 1 minute, which is interesting.
That is interesting.
So this is actually a video from an uncle, one of these uncles that had experiences, and I think it's a very interesting one because this was shot in Ethiopia. It was recorded with a VHS camera, and it was witnessed by two people. There was him and there was his sister. So what happened is at some point you see an object appearing here, high in the sky on the left. It disappears for 3 seconds and it reappears lower in altitude. Then my uncle zoomed in, and then you see some sort of tic-tac shape. And you also see some metallic reflection. So you cannot claim this thing is something intangible, a light or something. It was some solid structure of some kind. And then it moved a bit like a ping pong ball, like a bit like David Fravor describes. You will see, I will skip a little bit, just do. Okay, so here sorry. So look at this corner. Now you see the object, it disappears, and it reappears lower.
Oh, interesting.
And then now you will see the object a bit better. The shape is pretty well defined, I would say. Then he had difficulty in focusing because it was like trying to move out.
Yeah, iPhones aren't really made for this sort of photography in the first place.
Certainly, one thing that I know is that this was not manipulated in any way. So, yeah. So, and these are other interesting, let's say, data that I want to show. Basically, these were obtained with this setup by two people that I know. One actually is a collaborator of Massimo Teodorani, and who is affiliated with the CU, I think. And the other one is an engineer, forensic technical consultant, and also somebody who develops hyperspectral cameras. So cameras that can see, in the ultraviolet, infrared, beyond the visible. So they had this kind of setup. They were broadcasting a specific frequency that seemed to attract certain phenomena. And then there was this guy who is, I think, the son of one of the guys meditating to enhance the effect. And what they could catch, for instance, is this object. So here you are seeing an energy signature with this in a spectrum which goes between 300 and 1,200 nanometers, and using 269 frames per second. The camera is equipped with some sort of AI tracking algorithm. So at the beginning, he's able to track the object, and then he loses it for a while. This is original speed. Now you see 12 times slower. And then I will show also a better view, a zoom in view.
This is all ultraviolet. This is not like heat energy, right?
Well, let's say they couldn't see it. It's like it was in the visible spectrum. And so this is how the object looks like. And what's interesting is that it appeared to have some sort of a halo or maybe a electromagnetic shield of some kind.
It's got this sort of crescent-shaped lip that seems to be like sticking out of a spherical.
Yeah, it seems like a traditional, saucer with dome shape. But on top of that, you have also this energy field.
Yeah.
And then with the same cameras, so this was in a different place. Here you see the comparison between visible light, energy spectrum, and this one is a frequency spectrum.
Oh, nice.
And what the interesting thing is that they see different objects in energy than in frequency. And it's impossible to know exactly what was going on. But they couldn't see it. In the visible, you see absolutely nothing. There is nothing going on in the visible. So
that's bizarre. In the frequency spectrum, you see this sort of, large object kind of descend from the upper right-hand corner down to the center, and then in the
yeah, these objects coming from the left doesn't appear at all in the.
Yeah, they don't have the same trajectory at all. That's wild. That's interesting.
Yeah,
and that's the same time. These are all of the same moment of.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Reporting. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And okay. So here we start with the strangest stuff. So as I said, after 2018, I got a bit interested into this connection between spirituality and UFOs. And at some point, I had the chance to go to the States for a conference. It was actually an IAA conference, aerospace conference. But I had also arranged to meet this psychic that I had been following on YouTube for some months. She claimed that she could access memories of past life. She could see entities and stuff like that. And
what's her name?
Elizabeth April. She's Canadian actually. And so at the time, I wanted to know about these experiences that I had with the UFOs and I wanted to know if she could tell me something about that. I wanted to tell also to ask about past lives, because I got interested into that. Mm-hmm. And I also did my own experiment in meditation to access something, and I got some very interesting information that I could verify, actually. But so one of the things that she told me, so we talked for like a full hour. I recorded everything. And one thing that she told me is that I see an entity behind you and it looks like a giant mantis, like an insectoid. And he tells me that his name is Gala and is one of your spirit guides. And then there is something happening during this session, which was quite interesting. And I tell you because it will have a meaning later on. So at some point we see a hummingbird. So this very tiny bird coming and basically going full speed against my face, almost as he wanted to hit me. And then he turned and then he does the same with him. So full speed against her face, and she had to move out not to be hit full speed. And then the bird make a big turn, and then he ended up staying in between us, like hovering like a little helicopter in between us.
Almost during this conversation that you're having with mantis beings and things?
Yes, almost as if he wanted to assist to our conversation. Yeah. And then, we noticed this strange behavior, but we didn't notice even when he left. But when I was on the bus going back from Los Angeles to San Diego, the first thing that I did, I went on Google and said, she told me about this Gala mantis being. I put it on Google. Let's see what I get. And the interesting thing is that the first link that I got was connecting praying mantises with hummingbirds. So that was kind of synchronicity.
Yeah.
It's not counterintuitive. And then I did further experiments. So basically I removed the name Gala. I just put mantis being and I would not get that link. So I tried to remove being and I would not get that link. So I had to put the exact same words that she used, Gala mantis being, to get this. And then what happened is the night after I was in San Francisco, alone in my bedroom, and in the night, and I look around, I said, okay, Gala, if you are really around me, give me a sign. What happened is I fell asleep immediately. And I woke up feeling like somebody was grabbing my waist and shaking me up, which reminded me of, imagine your mother that wants to wake you up because you're late for school. She comes, she grabs you, and, she shakes you up. It's time to go. And that was scary. I actually, screamed. I didn't expect somebody to touch me, but I said, well, strange. It's the second strange occurrence connected to this entity. And then 1 month later, so we are in February 2019, I basically developed some sort of skin infection. And that day I decided to go to the doctor. But so basically before going, I put Gala mantis being on Google. I said, okay, what is the message of the day? The first link this time was connecting praying mantis with parasites. And well, I go to the doctor and the doctor tells me, you have a bacterial infection, so you have to take antibiotics, which actually healed my problem. And then after I went again to look on Google, I put again Gala mantis being, and the link to parasites didn't appear. So it was a strange way of communication in which I was engaged, and I was getting informations which were meaningful for me, But the craziest of them all was 2 months later, I was flying back to Turin, and I was the only one on my row of seats with full view on the wing. So I more or less I've taken already more than 200 flights in my life, and I always try to stay on the wing and look outside. I never saw a damage of this kind. I took a picture, and then later on I remembered about a video that I saw of somebody actually having contact with these entities, and I see definitely some kind of similarities in the pose, in the head. So if you cannot claim this looks like an elephant or a monkey or a human being, it really looks like a mantis. So if this is how I think it is, NHI have some sense of humor and also can manipulate matter at will, because this was a physical evidence that I can take a picture of. Then a couple of months after this event, I started having time anomalies. I had 2 in the same week, which were very puzzling. So the first time I put the alarm at 9:30 in the morning. I wake up to go to the bathroom, and then on my way back, I check the time, and it was 9:23. So I thought only 7 minutes, and then the alarm will ring. But I'm still tired, so I want to sleep. And then I woke up after some time, and I was like, oh, it must be so late. I checked the time, and it was 8:03, almost as I had gone backward in time 80 minutes. And then I tried to rationalize. I said, okay, maybe I dreamt the whole thing to wake up, to go to the bathroom and check the time, or maybe it was not 9:23, but it was 7:23. But then in the same week, so this was a Monday, on a Friday of the same week, I put the alarm at 9. This time the alarm rings, I take it, I switch it off, and then I start reading my emails. Then I go to the bathroom. Then I come here in the kitchen and I look at the clock, and it was telling me 8:47. I said, it's not possible. I checked my phone, 8:48. I checked the alarm, and it was deactivated at 9 o'clock. So this time I had an anomaly that involved two independent devices. And basically it looked like from going to the upstairs to downstairs, I went back in time of 35 minutes or something like that. Twice in the same week. Then it has happened to me, for instance, to meditate once with the usual music video, and which is 35 minutes in length. And then the music finishes and only 14 minutes have passed instead of 35. And then another time after meditation, I was with a friend on the sofa, and I was complaining because I had a meeting at 17:30 and it was 17:27 on the kitchen clock. We both look at it, and we both saw the time going backward 4 minutes. We both saw it. So it went. The clock went backward to 17:23.
This person had strange experiences too, or had you talked to them about your strange experiences in a way that gave it a context for this, or did you both just look at the clock and see it go backward and then go, what the hell just happened?
Yeah, no, we both look at the clock, and she also looked because I was complaining, and she was trying to say, well, whatever. But I don't know. It's almost like I wanted time and I got a little bit. And then I had other similar experiences, but I don't even remember all of them.
It occurs to me that these sorts of experiences could happen to lots of people much more frequently than you think. And we would just kind of dismiss it and say, oh, well, I'm a little confused or...
True, but the first time I tried to brush it off, but then it happened in a way, as I said, that involved two different devices, and I couldn't brush it off. There was no way for me to brush it off.
I think there's also something about being a scientist or an engineer that makes you obsess over little quantitative details in a way that
Absolutely.
You want an explanation. And there's a lot of other people who I think would look at that and just go like, oh, phones are glitching, or I'm a little confused, or, whatever strange things happen in my head. But this doesn't happen to everybody. It's like the context of your life and your experience is what gives meaning to all of these things and helps you to focus in on them and see their significance when other people might not.
Yeah, but you also have scientists or very analytical people that, because of their indoctrination on the fact that they are not open-minded or possibilities, they just brush it off anyway.
Sure, it couldn't be possible. It couldn't really be any weird thing happening. There must be some prosaic technical explanation, so they just kind of write it off. Yeah.
Yeah, but in general, I don't like half answers. I like a full answer. So, that's also why I try to explore these as much as I could, because I wanted to find my own answers. I didn't want to rely on external sources to understand some of these phenomena. And for what I understand, the more you dig into it, the more you can attract this kind of experiences. At least it happened to me, and it happened also to other people I know. And so going back to my uncle, the same uncle of the video in Ethiopia. Mm-hmm. So before moving to Belgium in 2001, I went to a marriage, actually, and he showed me this picture. The story of this picture is interesting. So he went with his wife to a pilgrimage, to a religious Catholic pilgrimage in the south of Italy. They were celebrating a saint called Padre Pio. Mm. And there was a friend of them who was taking random pictures of the sky with an analogical camera. So not a digital one, an analogical one. And when this woman developed the film, in one of the pictures, instead of the sky, you see this face. The one here.
That's actually a photo you're saying. She developed this actual photo?
Yes. So I saw this photo. When I look at it, I was like, wow, this could be a spirit or could be an extraterrestrial. I don't know, but make me a copy. So I took a copy. I kept it in a book for like 18 years without ever looking at it. Then when I started having this sort of spiritual interest again, I actually found the book. I found the picture. I was like, wow, this is really something. So what happened is in 2020, I met a new friend. I threw a party after a trip to San Francisco. I met some new friends, and this woman in particular, a Belgian woman, middle-aged, she invited me to have initiation to Shaktipat. So she had spent a lot of time in India, and she had been initiated to what is called they call Shaktipat by a Swami, one of these gurus. And she said, because of the experiences that you are telling me and your desire to have more connection, maybe this could help you. So I said, okay, let's try. So after some time, maybe a couple of weeks, we met at her place. It was me, her, and two friends of her. And so I think I made a face contact through the phone with this Swami that was supposed to do the initiation. And then we closed the conversation and we started meditating. So actually I was meditating. She was also meditating and channeling at the same time. And there was one girl that was singing and another one that was playing shamanic drum. And as soon as I close my eyes, I actually see this spirit dressed in white with a white robe and in lotus pose, like meditating, with a blue aura, bright blue aura all around. And then the second after, I see him walking towards me, and next to him, I saw another entity which looked very extraterrestrial, also wearing a robe. It was a pink-purple robe, but with a face which was like triangular and almost looking like a dragon. But imagine a dragon, but with a flat face, but also with scales here. And then in my mind, I ask, who are you? And I see a writing popping up, Metatron. And it's interesting because one of your previous guests, Brennan, was talking about Metatron. And actually, I share some of these experiences with him as well. So going back, so basically, my friend, once the meditation was over, she told me, well, I saw a spirit, and she described the same spirit, but this kind of Jesus-like, but dressed in purple. And she said, I saw him actually going behind you and putting a hand on your shoulder and say, this is my worker, something like that. And then when she was asking who was the spirit, the name she was getting was Sananda. Now, in some spiritual circles, they associate Sananda with the ascended version of Jesus. So Jesus would be the human and Sananda would be the spirit. And what I can say is that after this initiation, for me, experiences escalated exponentially in the matter of a few days. So what happened is I had arranged with a friend to have some sort of session in which she would play some shamanic drumming, and she would basically rebalance the chakras, something that they do when they do Reiki and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And but it was already locked down, so we couldn't meet face to face. So I was in my bed with the laptop and with the music playing on YouTube that she had pre-recorded, and I closed my eyes. First 5 minutes in, I feel nothing. And then suddenly I feel some sort of tingling starting from the tip of my fingers that propagates up to my shoulders in both arms. My arms got paralyzed. My head gets lifted up almost as somebody had put a hand in there. And then I feel a spinning energy, like I was on a spinning table, this energy throughout my body. And then my eyelids start flickering, start fluttering uncontrollably. I see this face, the same face of this Sananda or whatever. And then I see a hole, like a sort of portal opening with some entities around that I had already seen under hypnosis a month or 2 months before. These entities were actually looking like this. So round head, very, very long neck, completely white, round eyes, and a sort of piggy nose. And then these entities disappear, and then I see another array of entities, different colors, different shapes. I couldn't really focus on them. The only one that I could focus on was the last one, which was the mantis. So then I realized maybe these are my spirit guides. And that was interesting. When the music ends, basically my arm got back to normal. The energy stops like this. And after that, in the matter of few weeks, I started meditating more regularly. And then I got to a point of having similar experience just by meditating by myself. But before going into that, I want to show you something. So I ended up seeing this painting. It's called The Prince of Peace. I don't know if you know it. It was painted by this prodigy at the age of 8. She was.
Oh, 18. That little girl painted it?
Yes.
Oh,
she's called Akiane Kramarink. And this painting sold for millions of euros. She was claiming that she was seeing the spirit of Jesus, and she was just painting what she was seeing. There have been researchers that actually compare this face with the one of the Holy Shroud in Turin. And they found a perfect match. So I had this thought, if this spirit is somehow connected to Jesus and the Holy Shroud is Jesus and she was seeing Jesus, so 3 different independent sources, if I overlap all of them, do I see some similarity? And then here I'm showing the experiment.
Oh, wow.
The transition is very smooth. It's much smoother than you would think when you see the picture separated.
Sure.
And one interesting thing, for instance, is there is the neck of this picture. You see the neck here, and it's perfectly matching the structure of light that you see under this face. It's absolutely to the millimeter. They are on top of each other. So I don't know. It's interesting. It's an interesting things to notice, I think.
I mean, he's awfully white for Jesus. Does that bother you? Does that come to your mind as a point of concern?
White, I think is pretty, it could
I guess
be.
the Prince of Peace painting seems.
This one.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is how she saw it. So.
Sure.
But, if a spirit maybe looks a bit different. What I wanted to tell you about this entity is that more recently I connected to a journalist called Sabrina Pieragostini, somebody who used to be a news anchor in major TV channel in Italy and then started also writing books about UFOs and paranormal and spiritual stuff. And so she interviewed one woman in particular who, under hypnosis, remembered to have been abducted and remembered this particular entity. And if you look at their drawing and in my drawing, they look not too different.
Oh, it's extraordinarily similar. Yeah.
Yeah. So it almost looks like it was the same entities.
And I've never seen an entity drawn like that before. That's interesting to me that they strike me as strange looking and
it is a bit unusual.
Unfamiliar. Yeah. But the two people would render something that looked unfamiliar in the same way is interesting to me.
And
what was that third picture that you just had there?
Okay.
Spectrum picture.
Okay, so I'm happy that you asked. So basically, these cameras that I showed you before, with whom they catch some UFOs in
Massimo Teodorani's.
Yeah. So sometimes this person, who is also a forensic technical consultant, takes videos of people that he considers interesting. Mm-hmm. And sometimes when analyzing the image in specific frequencies, these people don't look like humans. Like in this case, this very thin lady looked like that, which to me, when I saw this picture, reminded me of that.
Sure, yeah.
Doesn't mean...
Was that person related to... It was just an interesting person to them, or it was interesting and relative to this subject?
Unfortunately, he didn't want to elaborate, but he believes that she was not human. That's why he was interested in seeing what he could see in invisible spectrum. For some reason that I don't know. And then, so I started meditating. I started having these experiences in which at the beginning, I was always seeing this face of this Ananda and then different entities. And then one day, this was in June, 21st June 2020. So I started actually, so the first time I connected in meditation, I received clear messages telling me, you have connected to a Stargate and you can connect other people who will meditate with you can have the same kind of experience. So I was feeling energies, I was seeing visuals, and I started organizing sessions, group meditation with people, and then we're having similar experiences, feeling energies, seeing entities of different kinds, some described as angels, some more extraterrestrial looking. And also the first time I connected, they also told me you can do this for healings, which I interpreted literally. So I said, okay, if it's true, I have a problem. So at the time I had an injury on my left wrist. It was a relapse from a previous problem at the tendon. And the previous time I had to take a cortisone injection to get rid of it. Mm-hmm. And after 5 months, the problem was not solved. And I couldn't even lift a cup without feeling pain up to the elbow. So I said, okay, if it's true that this kind of connection can be useful for healing, let's try it with myself. I will meditate tomorrow and let's see if this problem disappears. So the day after, I actually went meditating. I even forgot about the intention of the meditation. But while I'm getting out from the park, I hear this internal message, check your wrist. And then I check my wrist. I put pressure. I lift weights. I turn it in all ways, and the pain was gone. After 5 months, completely gone. And it never came back in 5 years. So that convinced me to try to do what they were saying, try meditating with other people. And so I did the experiments. On the 21st of June, I had arranged to meet with seven women, all in my circle of meditator friends. And we connect in meditation. And one of my friends start actually channeling the voices of these entities while we are feeling, at least I feel very strong energies. I have visuals of some of these entities. And then they actually guided us through some sort of light body activation using a Merkaba, which I learned only the day before what was a Merkaba. So
Merkaba is
it's like two
Kabbalah.
Right? They talk about that. Yeah, but it's a structure. Basically, it's a structure made of two tetrahedron that are one spinning clockwise and the other one counterclockwise. One's pointing up and the other one to the center of the Earth. And apparently, some say that some entities, spiritual entities or whatever, they can use this to travel even through dimensions. But this is, all esoteric knowledge or theories. But what I know is that after this meditation, actually we did a second meditation too, I went back home and something very weird happened. So I met at the door a neighbor that I never met before. And she told me, my cat has entered your house through an open window that I had on the street. I said, okay, let's get into, because somebody that lives in front of me apparently told her that she saw her cat entering my house. So we go inside, we check everywhere. So a lot of the rooms were already locked because I live alone and I didn't use these rooms, so they were locked. But anyway, we enter every single room, including the basement. There is also little furniture to hide behind. She was screaming the name of the cat. We don't find the cat. So I said, okay, sorry, your cat is not here. And then 3 days pass. I actually meet her again, and she tell me, I found another person that told me to have seen the cat entering your house. I said, sorry, your cat is not in my house. And then after 3 days, this cat was nowhere to be found. And I was meditating and asking, is there something special with this cat? And the message I was receiving is that we send you the cat to give you evidence of the non-linearity of time. I also asked a friend of mine who is a former photo reporter, but also a psychic medium, whatever. And I said, can you give me information about the cat? And he was basically telling me, the cat is there, but it's almost like in another dimension, but I don't know how to explain it. So after 3 days, one morning I wake up and I come downstairs and I see a trash, basically a trash bag completely ripped off. And then upstairs I find poo on a carpet. So I said, okay, the cat now is there somewhere. So during the night I put my laptop to record in the room, and I also put some crackers to attract eventually the cat. And the morning after, I checked the recording, and after 56 minutes in a recording, which is 9 hours, 18 minutes, 18 seconds, and there it's already interesting, 999, but whatever, if one cares about synchronicities, the cat is in the room. So it jumps on the sofa, and then at some point, the image freezes for 6 minutes. And then when it starts again, the image goes 100 times faster, and you only have one single frame of the cat in the middle of the room, and then kind of disappear, and then it reappears at normal speed. You will see it soon. Okay, so here it stopped. So you have to look here in this position. Did you see? And then if you slow down 100 times, 100, then at some point you see a single frame with the cat there. So the interesting thing is that I had received the message
prior to
about the non-linearity of time, and here you see freezing, you see acceleration, and then you see slowing down. So, and the strangest continues, because then I get the message that I could reproduce the same phenomenon just by meditation, and they suggested me to meditate, visualizing a sphere in my chest, like in my heart chakra, with inside a cube, with inside a tetrahedron. And then in the visualization, I had to imagine these solids, let's say, rotating faster and faster. And that would generate some energy able to somehow affect the space-time matrix around me. And so I consistently recorded myself when meditating, sometimes using QuickTime Player, sometimes using Zoom. But in most of the cases, I got some anomalies. And this is one example, very similar to the cat. The audio actually keep working even if even if the image is frozen. And then it goes super fast. But then if you go frame by frame, you find anomalies like this one, in which you see me in two different positions, transparent, almost as I was not fully materializing in each of the position, which is, it's not normal. Like normally, if you do if you stop a frame, I mean, if you go frame by frame, you should see me fully materialized in different positions.
Yeah.
And but then I said, okay, I did these experiments with the laptop. Maybe there is something wrong with the laptop. Would be nice to have an effect also caught on some other device. And it actually happened, and it happened with the phone. So once I was doing an 8-minute meditation, I had my friend in Chicago, so 7 hours of difference, and she was sending me messages on WhatsApp before and after the meditation, and she also sent me one single message during the meditation, and this was shifted 4 minutes in her phone compared to mine, the only message that she sent me during the meditation. So it's almost like, again, time during the meditation, time change somehow, becomes some sort of fluid, and then it goes back to normal and everything is synchronized again. And if you put this on top of the anomalies that I described at the beginning of our conversation, that makes a case, according to me. But okay, so I wanted to have something more scientific. So I contacted the Institute of Noetic Sciences that I guess you know.
Yeah, it's Dean Radin there in the bottom right.
Yeah, but my point of contact was actually the director of research, so Lani UAP. And so I had a limited budget, about 12,000 euros. And I said, what can you do to try to study the effects on people meditating with me just with a video? And they say, okay, with that budget, we can recruit 11 volunteers, all expert meditators. We can do EEG, and it's a good one, like 64 channel. They will do, so the protocol of the experiment will be, they will do a control meditation, which is a freestyle, 11 minutes, and then a meditation with your video, pre-recorded, also 11 minutes. in the video, the only thing that I was saying was like, I'm connecting you to the Stargate. And nothing else. The music was actually muted, not to pollute the acquisition of the signal for the EEG. So when you look at this data, basically you have on the left, you have the control, and you have, like in horizontal, you have delta, theta, alpha, beta, gamma. In the middle, you have the Stargate meditation. And then in the last one, you basically see each red dot correspond to an electrode in the EEG. When you see it red, well, it means that it's there is a statistically significant difference between the data for the control and the Stargate. So in this case, for instance, there were considerable differences in basically almost all the electrodes for delta, alpha, beta, gamma. For this one was mostly in the delta. For this was alpha, beta, gamma. And here was theta, alpha, beta, gamma. But on top of that, and this kind of behavior was consistent in the sense that for each of the 11 subjects, there were considerable differences across different brain waves. But then 4 of them in particular had very profound experiences compatible with the one that people meditating with me were having for already months. And I meditated literally with thousands of people up to now. But so, for instance, some felt the presence of some entity. They felt compressed by energies. One said that she had some sort of past life memory, which she even felt the cold in her body. And then others saw light beings. Another one, the subject 11, had almost a psychedelic kind of experience in vortices and stuff like that. So, you have some measurement telling you that something is happening, and he also assisted by some visuals and energies. And there were some subjects that experienced nothing special, but then if you look at their EEG, the EEG shows a lot of differences. So it's almost like they are activated in some way, but this doesn't translate in anything that they can perceive. I also did some fMRI with a team that studies, altered state of consciousness under hypnosis or meditation, and also Reiki and stuff like that. They only gave me partial analysis of the data, but they saw that there were, when I meditate, there is some, activation of some part of the brain and some more coherence, let's say. But I would need much more effort to be able to understand what was going on. And on top of that, this was unfunded. So they got no money whatsoever for doing this. These are the most interesting data that I have. The same journalist that I mentioned before that spoke with the abductee, she put me in contact with these guys with the hyperspectral cameras, and we decided to do an experiment or meditation. So
can we pause for 1 second?
Yeah, sure.
I have an old dog that is trying to get onto a stool.
Sure.
She's about to knock my camera down.
Perfect.
Here she is.
Oh, so cute.
Okay, come here.
She wants to get a bit of energy from the conversation. Yeah.
She's nearing the end of her life, and I'm trying to be as kind and gentle to her as I can. And
Oh, how old?
She's 15 now.
Oh, yeah.
But she's had a very good life, but I think everything has just become exponentially more difficult for her as she's gotten older.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Okay, so we'll edit this out, but if you want to just take a pause and then start right into this.
Yeah, I will. Yeah. So basically, the same journalist that show me this drawing of this person that thought to be abducted. She introduced me to these guys with the hyperspectral cameras. We decided to do a meditation experiment to see if they could visualize some effect in my biophotonic field. So basically, we emit light, and these cameras can be used to characterize this light in terms of energy, frequency, and also light polarization, for instance. And so they did a lot of experiment with people. One of these guys in particular, the engineer works with the Department of Medicine in a university in Italy, and he used this camera for like thousands of people. And so normally what they see in this specific frequency spectrum, they see that most of the light is concentrated, most of the frequency is concentrated in the eyes. And for instance, for the journalist, you see it, and also this other guy that was tested before me. It's almost like, Leonardo da Vinci used to say the light is the window for the soul. So actually with this instrumentation, they can actually visualize it. But then the strange thing is that for me, it's completely different. Even when I'm not meditating, the highest level of frequency is concentrated not in my eyes, but everywhere except for this structure around my eyes. And then when I start meditating, there is a toroidal field that forms around my head and spins forming a cross. Oh. And they had never seen the cross forming. They had seen the toroidal field around people meditating, and they've never seen somebody with a level of frequency which was so high, distributed over all the face. And here, actually, you can see the difference in frequency even better. Then they tested with another instrument. So they had a polarimetric camera measuring the polarization of the light. They chose like 10 points around my body, and they were monitoring what would happen when I start meditating. And when I start meditating, the polarization changes instantaneously. Now, to change the polarization of the light, you have to go from one medium to the another. If you go from air to water, or if you go through a plasma, or if you go through an electromagnetic field or through a gravitational field. But there is no reason that without generating any of these, the light would show this kind of behavior. But
wait, so let me just be clear. I was misunderstanding you. I thought that you were saying they were changing like a polarization as in like a lens or a setting on a camera. But you're
no. The polarization is like, if you consider the light as a wave, it vibrates or oscillates within certain preferential planes. Sure. But this plane can change if you hit an obstacle of some kind, let's say.
You're saying the shift in polarization is simply a shift that they're noticing happening. They're not looking through a different sort of.
No.
It's not a. They're not saying, well, let's look at this plane and
they're able to characterize how the light is vibrating in which plane and everything. They see that basically what happens around me. It's almost like there is something forming around me that changes the polarization of the light.
I see. And so it's not a shift in the method of viewing that we're noticing. It's a shift in what's recorded. Interesting.
And so two different instruments, very sophisticated ones, showing anomalies. And then they also did some other post-processing for the data. So they can use this camera, for instance, to monitor the activity of the pineal gland. The role of the pineal gland for spirituality or the connection to the other world is known since Egyptian or maybe even earlier. And so what they do, basically, they can characterize the direction of the photons with different colors. This is actually different from what I said in my interview with Ross Coulthart, because I misunderstood some message that I got from this engineer. But so the different colors correspond to different direction of the photon. So what you will see is the same video you saw before, but here we are looking at the activity of the pineal gland. So you cannot drill a hole through my head. That's the closest you can get in a 2D image, right? So the anomaly here is that they saw these flashes of light blasting off my body when I start meditating. And they've never seen that. It's almost like, And on top of that, here you also see a screenshot with this cross that I was mentioning before. Mm. We are almost at the end of the presentation. So recently I went to Val Malenko, which is a hotspot for UFO activity. A lot of people have also reported, have caught on camera or video, not only, let's say, UFOs of any kind and shape, but also entities. And this is a picture that was given to me by the journalist who met with the person that took the picture. So this is
Val Malenko, Italy? Val Malenko, Italy?
Val Malenko.
Is that where is that?
It's like 2 hours and a half from Milan.
Okay, yeah.
And so I recently went there in October with the same guy that worked with the hyperspectral camera and a friend of Teodorani, who also brought his own gear. And we started doing some measurements to see if we could catch some UFO. We caught some sort of orbs in the invisible range, but then we also did meditation experiments. And there was again another anomaly. So they used another camera, another hyperspectral camera that they never tested on me. And I was meditating, and this friend of Teodorani was also meditating. What you see here is actually a time series. So it's almost like instead of showing a video, you show the measurement at a different time. Okay. So normally you should see. So here we are looking at the frequency signature of the biophotonic field. Normally each entry in this matrix should be filled in. So you should see, as in this case for this guy that worked with Teodorani, you see always some measurements. But in my case, for most of the time, I sort of disappeared. Like the camera was not able to detect my frequential signature. Again, this was another device, the third one in a row that we tested on me, and they saw something that they'd never seen before. And we don't have an explanation other than there is definitely something happening around me. It seems to affect time in the experiments that I showed before that I did by myself. It seems to affect the light. So now, if I want to be to put a far-fetched theory, the only thing that I know that can affect light and time is gravity. So is it possible that maybe this kind of meditation is able to create some sort of gravitational anomaly? And then it makes you wonder, because, for instance, Diana Pasulka was very interested into these levitating saints, that could fly. And then, these yogis, sometimes they have the ability apparently also to do that. So if you are able to levitate, you are able to generate gravity. So maybe this is part of the same kind of physics involved in that specific phenomenon. And it's the first time that you see measurements with this kind of devices.
Fascinating. So I guess that would also kind of, it would give you some ground for our hypothesizing about how there might both be a connection between consciousness and the UAP phenomenon, and between consciousness and some sort of propulsion system or something.
Yeah, so because this kind of phenomenon, you see them also for UFOs. They seem to bend the light and to change the frequency and energy features of the field around. And what if with consciousness you can create a similar field just around your body? It's just that you have to be able to get to that point. And I don't know, in some way, maybe because of my close encounters with these UFOs or entity or whatever, maybe something happened in the process. But so I also had a face-to-face encounter, a single face-to-face encounter with an entity. And this happened, I think it was the 12th of October 2022. So I was sleeping. At some point, something touched me on one arm. I opened my eyes, and when I open my eyes, I see an entity which looks like this. So wearing a hood, wearing a robe, completely white. I couldn't distinguish any facial feature or anything, and it had some sort of spinning vortex of blue light in the lower part of the body that was moving. And it was almost like this entity was coming out of a portal. So I screamed 3 times, and I was almost like jumping out of the bed. I sat on the bed and I was ready to jump, and it disappeared. But what I can say is that I wasn't dreaming before. It just like, something touched me, opened my eyes. I saw it for maybe 2 seconds, and then it was gone. And it was almost as tall as the room. So maybe 2.20 meters, 2.40 meters. I could add also that a week before, while meditating, I was asking, why don't you ever show yourself in the physical? And the message I was receiving is that even though you saw us under meditation, to see us in face-to-face is a different story, and you would get scared. And actually, 1 week later, after I had this experience, I immediately thought about that and said, well, in some way they were right. And then, I'm almost there. I probably 2-3 slides. This is another phenomenon that I noticed after my connection with this NHI, I'm able to connect telepathically with wild animals, birds or even insects, dragonflies, butterflies, and in some cases I was really able to trigger the contact, which is non-trivial. Like, I don't know, it's not easy, for instance, to go and pet a crow, and it's definitely not easy, for instance, to call a dragonfly just right after a meditation. We saw them flying. We said, okay, we just focus saying, we love you. Don't be afraid to land on my hand. We don't want to do you harm. And this dragonfly went to the hand of my friend first, and then she came to me, and she never left. She was keeping on coming back. And I also tried to go very close with the hand to see if it would get scared, and it wouldn't get scared. Then 1 week later, we went back to the same place, put the hand out after the meditation, and the dragonflies came back. So I believe that the mechanism that you use to connect with this NHI is very similar to the one that you have to connect with animals. So this is probably even reported in history. There was, I don't know, St. Francis was seeing orbs and was also connecting to animals. I'm not saying I'm St. Francis, but I say I can see some of the same phenomenon happening.
Oh, sure, yeah. I totally understand that it makes complete sense to me that there might be a connection between state of mind and the perception of these other animals.
And then in some cases, it happens that when I'm meditating, I see an entity, which is maybe a humanoid with a bird head or an insectoid. And then I actually connect with an animal, which is of the same species. For instance, it happened here. I was meditating in the forest. I saw an entity which was gigantic with white bird head and shoulders as a human. And I said, okay, if it's true that I'm connecting to you, send me a sign. And then what happened is I go out of the forest, and I sat on a terrace. And then from around the corner, there is this magpie, this baby magpie that comes, jump all around, and then it comes to me and he bite my jeans. I could have pet it, but I didn't do it. And then I go back home. I go back home, and the same day, and there was a bird, a black cat chickadee that was stuck in my backyard. And basically I brought it home because it couldn't fly out. I brought it home, I let it fly around, and it landed under the love. I mean, it was incredible. And I have to say, at some point I sat in front of this bird, and I closed my eyes, and I saw this gigantic entity that similar to the one that I had seen in the forest. It happened the same day,
This sort of chimerical bird humanoid thing.
Yeah, like an Egyptian god. And this actually has to do with the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies. I actually went to the conference in Huntsville. And then two of the participants wanted to meditate with me to see how we would feel. So we sat outside. And during the meditation, at some point on my right, I see an entity that had the face of a grasshopper and the body more or less of a human, and completely white. And I also was hearing royals. And so once we finished the meditation, the guy who was sitting next to me on the left told me, I just saw a grasshopper. I didn't say anything about the entity that I saw. He said, I saw a grasshopper landing next to you. And then we go, and on top of this gate, there was a grasshopper, actually, and it was standing on the Elite brand, Elite Royals. Sure. Isn't it crazy? So two synchronicities in one.
And it's not quantifiable. I mean, I don't know any way of drawing a quantifiable connection between the word elite and royals and grasshoppers and your thing, but there's no denying that there's a meaningful connection there. It seems humorous. Yeah. It really seems playful in a way.
It definitely made sense for me and for the guy that saw the grasshopper. And then these are the last three pictures. So I was talking about the electromagnetic interference that I experienced. So the first time, after a meditation, I was going out of another park in which we had meditated. And then I felt a sort of hitting on my head, like almost as you are exposed to some sort of radiation or something. And then I look up, and then we see actually that there was a cloud, quite low in altitude, and it was the only cloud anywhere. And then the funny thing is that it had these like very square edges.
Strangely geometrical cloud, yeah.
Yeah, almost like a diamond of some kind. And so I said, I sort of felt that it was something else. So I wanted to take a picture, and what happened is my phone froze, became completely black with a little blinking light in the middle. And it was blinking in the middle and then moving to the right and disappearing. And it kept on doing it for some minutes. I had lost control of my phone. And then I said at some point, let me take this picture. And then I managed to close whatever was on my phone. And then I took a picture, and this is what you see. And then after that, this kept on happening, but in different form, this form. And it happened like 10, 15 times. So meditation, then I hear almost like a telepathic messages. We are around. I focus on a particular cloud, this one in this case, and this happened to my phone. Instead of showing this, it shows me that. And for instance, this other case is one of the most recent. We started meditating with this situation. After the meditation, there were many more of these kind of clouds. And I told my friends, these are not clouds. And immediately my phone went into this mode. She witnessed it 1 second after. And then the strangest anomaly was once we were meditating. During the meditation, the phone switches off. I managed to switch it on, and it's at 10% of charge. Now, iPhone 7, 5-year-old battery, 10% of charge.
An hour or something. Yeah.
Or after a few minutes, 15, 20 minutes maximum if you don't use it.
Yeah.
But what happened that day is that it lasted for 10 hours while I was using it. It always stayed at 10%. And then during the night, I told my friend, I said, this is the same phone that you saw this morning, still at 10%. It didn't go to 9%, 8%, 10%, and I keep on using the phone. Then I look at the phone, and I was alone at that point. My friend had already left. I look at the phone, I said, what's happening with you? I saw a little orb, like the one that I saw when I told you that I was surrounded by this bubble of lights. I saw this little orb coming off the phone, going to the left, and then my phone switches off in the matter of few minutes, as normally should have done 10 hours before.
So you saw you saw it as an object, not simply on the screen.
I saw the orb coming off the phone and going. So when you have this kind of phenomena, I mean the variety of this phenomena is so great, but I see a connection. It's not random anomalies.
Does it annoy you as a scientist and engineer that these phenomena don't manifest in more like the ways that we would really like them to in a laboratory setting?
I do believe that some of the stuff that I showed you, this experiment with the hyperspectral camera, I'm pretty sure I could reproduce it in a lab environment. But I also know that I don't know. At least people researching the paranormal or these anomalies, including Dean Radin himself, say that sometimes because of the effect of the observers, if the observers are total skeptics, they may actually don't experience anything, and the experiment could fail.
Sure. Yeah. He gives a great example of a study of the effects of meditation on plant, like how well plants thrive, where you find if you give a group of meditators some plants and ask them to care for them and meditate on them, the plants thrive really well if the meditators are like genuine believers in the efficacy of it. But if they're not, you don't see any effect. I mean, that doesn't sound impossible to me. It does sound frustrating. I mean, we would like, at least when we're in the mode of doing science, we would like the entire world to behave as if it were just a gigantic laboratory where we could reproduce everything and quantify everything. But it doesn't seem like it is like that.
Yeah, it's not something, it's difficult to have something on demand, even if occasionally you can get this kind of effect for some phenomenon. Like Chris Bledsoe apparently is able to almost manifest orbs, by just setting the intention. I don't have that ability, but I can say that a few times that I did that kind of experiment, it actually worked. And then I had these consistent anomalies that I described. The time anomalies, this electromagnetic interference on my phone, always in the same scenario, like I'm connecting to clouds, and I hear the message and then this happens. So am I triggering it, or it's some other force triggering it? So that's hard to, assess.
Does it occur to you that, like in the first story that you told about being an 8-year-old, the second story in, I guess, 2017, where you kind of thought, well, wouldn't it be cool if I could manifest this again? Does it occur to you that that the intention might be an effect of the phenomenon itself, that rather than you manifesting it, your desire to see it might be a sort of like...
So it's like almost they inject this thought in you.
Sure.
It's possible. It's possible. We have no way to verify that, but it's an interesting theory. Yeah.
It's hard to run experiments that test the direction of time when you're kind of stuck in one flow.
But what I strongly believe is that at least also with this synchronicity that I showed. So these entities, or some of them at least, exist or have a perspective which is outside time, like almost like an eagle eye. And I want to share one analogy that I find really interesting that I heard a few days ago by a hypnotherapist. Think about a record. So you have all the different songs at the same time in there, and you can jump from one to the other without specific direction, So imagine this scenario as dynamic. Imagine that, you are looking at different timelines or something, but you can also modify the timeline in the future, and the future can affect the past and stuff like that. So it's really like your mind, at some point, you build models to try to make sense of things, but at some point it just blows up, It's like, it's difficult, to make sense of everything. But,
I'd like to do a second conversation where I kind of do a Q&A with you, because you've gone through such an interesting milieu of experiences and ideas that I don't know how to systematically ask all the questions that I want to. Would that be okay?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So for now, let's cut the conversation here, and then we'll do a part 2 with my questions.
Okay.
Gather my thoughts, I guess.
I hope you got some interesting input.
I did very much. I'm looking forward to our second conversation. But Andrea, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you, and for this opportunity.
Yeah, we'll cut it there. But and I do have to go briefly, but genuinely, thank you. This was fascinating, and I know that there's at least for me, there's a kind of exhaustion I feel at laying my experience out for other people all the time, because there's a vulnerability that you have to engage in, and there's also a kind of effort that it takes to run through your life in that sort of fast forward way. So thank you for doing that. I think that's a real value for people who want to take these things seriously, or who are curious about them, but want to hear them from explained, or at least the stories relayed from people who also understand science and the practice of science. And so we don't have to say, well, maybe this person just isn't good at thinking about science, and if they were, they wouldn't think this way about the world. So this is a really unique thing that you're offering us.
Yeah, of course. In this discussion, I jump also to something more religious, or something that. At the end, is all part of the same, according to me. It's a pity that people try to put things in, confine people with things with labels, and it's like you have to, if you want to understand the phenomenon, you have to take the all of it and keep an open mind and look at 360 degrees, not just looking at the nuts and bolts or whatever, because you don't go very far like that.
No, I absolutely agree. And that's kind of one of my not so secret agendas in working with SCU, is that I want to push and dissolve some of these boundaries that we've drawn that feel so arbitrary to me. The sort of nuts and bolts and hard science and religion and those things. I think those are useful categories for certain kinds of inquiry, but I don't think that reality itself is divided in that way. And so I think these phenomena manifest themselves in ways that show that those boundaries just aren't built into reality.
I think the narrative is a little changing. Also, thanks to this interview, like with Barber or other people, Chris Bledsoe and, Diana Pasulka, every time that you listen to these people, they're moving steps in direction that, conventional UAP scientists like Avi Loeb don't take. Absolutely. So
yes, and I don't know what to do in my ambivalence about people like Avi Loeb, because I'm grateful for the work that they have done, but I'm also so personally frustrated by some of the, I don't want to say prejudices, but the structure that they bring to it. You talk about frustration with the structure of the Catholic Church. There's a similar frustration I have with people thinking about this.
What can you say to somebody that says the human instrument is limited, so I just trust my AI algorithm? But AI typically you can apply it massively to data that you've already understood, and then you try to speed up the process. But AI is not the one that will create the theory to understand this very complex phenomenon. So for me, the approach of Avi that I respect a lot, because, it's important to have a mainstream scientist like him going forward and say, I go in this direction. It removes a little bit of stigma. But his approach is going nowhere. So
I agree. And I'm with Avi, one of my frustrations is that I don't understand how a person can be so smart and how it's not obvious to them that this approach isn't going in the direction that you want. That there are these inherent limits to this approach. I don't see why those aren't obvious to him. But
I think he needs to have an experience of his own, and maybe he will open up a little bit.
Do you think he hasn't had any experiences of his own?
I don't know.
I wonder this. I personally don't know, but I know a lot of people in the UAP community who are on the very hard science side. I know a lot of them personally who've had extremely intense and bizarre experiences, and I never would have thought so from their work. I would have thought that they are just like really hardcore materialists who think there's some empirical evidence for a weird thing that we need to study, and then I'll get to know some of them, and they're like, "Oh yeah, spirits come to me all the time. I can see them in my eyes." Like right now.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, and they're like, yeah, I just don't know. That they draw this very hard line between their personal life and their professional work. It's like when they go into their professional mode, they just apply this kind of empirical science framework. Mm-hmm. When they're in their personal life, I see ghosts, but I don't know how to talk to them or talk about them as physicists.
Unfortunately, at least in the academic field, there is still a lot of stigma, and I have been also a victim of that. Like I was trying to organize a UFO conference in 2023. I had 23 speakers, including Leslie Keane, Ben Hansen. I had Kripal, a bunch of people, and everything set up. And then there was some interference from outside the university. They basically send an email to the director of the university saying there is somebody trying to host a UAP conference in your university, and they are trying to push narratives like abductions and stuff. Because I had everything from religion to UAP nuts and bolts data collection, and so at some point I got a lot of pressure to basically cancel or anyway you go on, but at your own risk. And then I got a furious email from the head of the Department of Mathematics, which is the department where I work, saying, I completely want to dissociate myself with your spare time interest. I understand that it's spare time, but I completely want to take distance, and I don't want to have any scientific collaboration with you anymore, starting from now. Can you imagine?
Insanity. Was that at Leuven?
Yes.
It's a Catholic university.
I know.
How can you possibly?
I know. And this guy didn't want to talk to me at all. I couldn't justify myself, but to another, head of the department, of my research unit, I said, I'm trying to look for a scientific, link between religion and UAP. So yeah. What's the problem? So there are data, there are things that show up in radar. And on top of that, we are theology here is studied by these people. They speak about gods, but maybe they were ancient aliens. Who knows? So,
sure. Yeah. I don't understand that, especially at a Catholic university where, like, by definition, you explicitly acknowledge the existence of other orders of beings and things, or in mathematics, where I think mathematics is probably the field where you're least obligated to disassociate yourself from these things. I mean, you're working with the realm of numbers and relations. I don't know.
Yeah, but I don't know. There are very limited minds around, unfortunately. So
I'm sorry that you've been a victim of that.
It's okay. It made me stronger.
I hope so. I need to run.
Okay. Thanks a lot, and see you soon.
Thank you so much. Bye.
See you.
The Anomalous Review is a project of the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies. It's hosted and produced by me, Michael Glosson, and edited by Kelly Michelle. Our theme song was written and performed by Telma Crisanti. Communication and PR work is by Preston Dykes. Our advisory team includes Jennifer Roach, Robert Powell, Richard Hoffman, Joshua Pearson, and Larry Hancock. To find out more about SCU, check out explorescu.org.